You're listening to the X Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. Radio's authority on the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology, celebrating 25 years of broadcasting. Broadcasting around the world and to the great beyond.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
Welcome to the X Zone, everyone. My name is Rob McConnell, and for the next 4 hours, I am your host. I am your guide as together we cross the time-space continuum to this place that I call the X Zone. It's a place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. It's a place where fact is fiction, and fiction, well, 99.9% of the time is stranger than reality. Worldwide toll-free, 800-610-7035. My email address is xzone@xzoneradiotv.com. On all social media sites, X-Zone Radio TV. And you can listen to the X-Zone live Monday through Friday from 8 p.m. Eastern until midnight at www.xzoneradiotv.com. And the rest of the time, you can listen to the best of at www.xzoneradiotv.com. It is Friday, November the 27th in the year 2015. And my first guest tonight is a gentleman that I've had the pleasure of having on the show a number of times. His name is Lee Boyland, and he's well qualified to write about all types of weapons, nuclear, chemical, biological, and conventional. Lee has a degree in nuclear engineering. He served 3 years in the U.S. Army as an explosives ordnance disposal officer, assigned to the Defense Atomic Support Agency in Sandia Base, now part of the Kirkland Air Force Base in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Now, DASA controlled the development and stockpiling of all nuclear and thermonuclear weapons, providing Lieutenant Boyland access to the design details of every nuclear and thermonuclear warhead developed by the United States, up to the Mark 63 warhead. His primary assignment was the DASA Nuclear Emergency Team, responsible for nuclear weapon accidents and incidents. Other duties included providing bomb disposal support to the local authorities, participating in tests at the Nevada test site, and teaching training courses provided by DASA. But Lee is a very well-known author. He's written a number of articles. He has a number of books that are available at leeboylandbooks.com. But tonight, to start with, we're going to be talking to Lee about his new book, Revelation 2016, Take Back America. Joining me now is my friend Lee Boyland. And Lee, welcome back to the show. Always great talking to you, my friend.
It is always my pleasure to be back. We wrote this book, finished the book in Labor Day of 2013, and we were going into anticipating the 2014 elections. And I decided to write a satire on the administration and what was going on, and it turned out to be pretty good. It's more of a parody. We're getting a lot of really interesting comments posted on Amazon. I get a lot of emails directly to my website because I have an address on it. And
right.
I get them for a lot of books. Go ahead.
No. I was just saying right.
Yeah. And, one of the other books earlier on was The Clash of Civilizations, where Islamists attacked us with nuclear devices, destroyed 5 of our cities, and then we had to go through the recovery period of rebuilding the country, which was interesting. I got an email from a gentleman in Brazil we get books sold apparently all over the world, because we get from Australia and Belgium, France, Brazil, Israel. It's interesting. And this guy sent me, he said, I really love your series, especially the spin-off series, the OAS series. And in your next book, would you put in a square sun, S-U-N, like the sun in the sky?
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, what's a square sun? So I went to Google. Google didn't know. Yahoo didn't know. Finally, after about a week of searching, I sent him an email back and said, what's a square sun? And he said, well, these old Portuguese prisons have these huge rooms with a dome and one little window at the very top that's square, and so they call it a square sun. Well, we just finished the first draft of our new book, which will be coming out in January or February, which is Triple Threat. And I worked and worked and worked, and I finally got the square sun in. So it's interesting. You try to work with your readers. You want to come back and relate to them. I get good ideas from people, very good ideas, or other books. They'll send me and say, "Have you thought about putting this in a new book?"
But let's talk
back to the.
Yeah, let's talk about Revelation 2016. Take
it's
back
Revolution.
America. Revolution. I'm sorry.
Revolting. What it starts out is the theme of the book is the liberal bend to have gun control and confiscate the guns from Americans, do like Australia did, and we'll probably get the same results. Mm-hmm. And the fact that the people aren't going to put up with it. And the underlying question that's under the sort of the floor of the whole story is, would the U.S. military follow the commander-in-chief's orders to suppress the population? And the question is answered in the last few pages of the book. And it's I think we did a good job. I've had a lot of military people read it, and they tell me that I really hit it well from their point of view.
You know, over the years, I've spoken to many guests on the show, Lee, who have talked about these camps or these areas that are being built throughout the United States, and they've often wondered if this is for the citizens who would not follow the orders of the president.
That's interesting, because that is very much a conspiracy theory, and the fact is they're real. These facilities are real. Mm-hmm. I thought that they were being put in to be quarantine facilities in case we were attacked by a biological agent, and you would have to have quarantine facilities to control the disease, but it can also be used to control people who don't agree with you. Right. So what this comes down to is like the Patriot Act. You have to trust the people you give this power to, and I'm beginning to wonder if we can.
Has too much power been given back to the government? Because the way I see it, Lee, it's no longer we the people. It seems to be I the person.
Yes, it is. You're right. And yes, we have given too much power back to Washington. The Constitution didn't say what the Congress couldn't do. The Constitution said what the Congress could do, no more than what's written in the Constitution. We've thrown that part out and just done everything. The government's running everything. Now the president is saying he's going to take action against states who refuse to accept refugees. That's not his job. That's not Congress's job.
But I thought because the immigration is under federal jurisdiction, that it has nothing to do with the states. So help me understand this, Lee.
Immigration, we've never faced this problem before, where we're allowing enemies to come into our country as refugees, and knowing they're enemies. Yeah. And the states are saying we don't want them. The states are not saying you can't bring them in. They're just saying don't bring them into my state. And Florida, where I live, is one of those states that says don't bring them here.
I'm against the bringing in of Syrian refugees here in Canada. I'm dead against it. We've got a new prime minister who is saying, all right, we're going to take our time. But what we're going to do is we're going to let 5,000 in by December the 31st. We're going to let children, women, and members of the what is it, LGTB?
Yes.
lesbian gay community in. Now, I'm saying, what the hell's going on here?
That's a witch's brew, which you've just made, because if you put the LGBT people in with the Muslims, they'll kill them.
Well, he's saying that there are many of the gay and lesbians who are Syrian refugees who need to come into Canada for their own protection.
I don't know. That could be true, but how do you know? Because there are no records. There's nothing to check in Syria.
Exactly.
I mean, people are just filling out forms. And one article I just read earlier today is that the people that are filling out the forms are throwing out the Christians and the Jews application.
Wow. You know, Canada, I after speaking to so many people in the United States, it seems that the world has become, well, the Western world has become way too overly politically correct. And
multiculturalism and political correctness will be the end of our society.
I was just going to say that. You took the words out of my mouth. My God, you must be a psychic.
I am. We've been doing this long enough I could read your mind. Excellent, you know.
Yeah, isn't that the truth? So Lee, what do we do? Like, you've got the government trying to dictate their personal agendas, and when we look at what's happening in Europe with the onslaught of Muslims into the Netherlands, into Germany, into France. Well, let's just take France for example. How many parts of France are under Sharia law? In fact, in the city of Marseille, France, the number one language is Arabic. The second language is French.
You just defined the problem. What you have is people that come to your country. Mm-hmm. They don't come to become part of your country. They come to bring their country and make you become part of it.
Right. Yeah, you're so right. And I look at it this way. If you're going to come to my country, you know, I understand that the United States and Canada were both built by members, who were immigrants. I understand this. But the immigrants who came over weren't here to destroy a country. They were here to build a country. You know,
that's right.
And my grandparents are European. You know, I don't think I have a friend who has a solid Canadian background except the members of the First Nations who are my friends. But you know, there's too much religion in it. There's too much risk in it, and I think what should have been done, Lee, is that there should have been an area in Syria that would have been put under protection of a universal or a coalition to give this area protection. Bring the United Nations in to, you know, for the food, the clothing, the shelter, whatever these refugees needed. Solve the problem with ISIS, eradicate them off the face of the earth, and let the Syrians go back to their homes in Syria.
You'll notice that none of the Arab states except Jordan is taking any of these people.
Yeah.
The Emirates will have nothing to do with them. Saudi Arabia doesn't want them.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because what they will have is they'll have more Palestinian refugees, except this time they'll be Syrian refugees in camps. These people, like you said, if they go into Saudi Arabia, they'll take over the country.
Yep.
That's why they're not allowed in. If they they're trying to take over Jordan. I don't know what to do with them. I really don't, because they don't want to assimilate. They want you to assimilate to them.
Yeah.
Did you see the pictures of this subway, of this train in France? That they had a 3-hour train trip of the refugees on it, and they just absolutely destroyed the train.
Oh, well, I haven't seen that one, but I have seen the path that the refugees were taking from Syria into Europe, and they destroyed everything on their way. You know what it reminded me of, and I hope I don't offend anyone here, but it reminded me of locusts, just destroying everything on their way. And you know what? People say, "Well, Rob, you're a racist. You don't like kids. This, that, and the other thing." It's not that at all. It's just that we have worked so hard to get Canada, and I'm sure many Americans feel the same way, America, to the great countries they are today. And I look at these refugees as a threat to our safety, our security, our democratic way of living, and our very being. They
are basically an invading force.
Yeah.
They're an invading force to bring their way of life and force you to accommodate it, because they feel that their religion, their ideology is superior. That tells them it's the whole basis of Islam. It is superior to all other religions and man-made laws. So obviously, when they come, you've got to change to meet their requirements.
You know, I'm a Christian, and I'm proud to say I'm a Christian. When I went to school, Lee, we used to say the Lord's Prayer. Everybody in the class. You had a Bible.
Sir.
You had a Bible in your desk. You were proud, and in fact, up until grade 7, I think the very first period was Scripture. You learned, and then the Christmas holidays and all the different holidays that were celebrated were part of growing up. But now you're not supposed to say Merry Christmas because it has religious connotations that could be offensive to other religious philosophies. So you're supposed to say Happy Holidays. I say bullshit to that. It's Merry Christmas. And you know what? This is my philosophy. The philosophy according to Rob McConnell. If you do not like our way of living, if you cannot live like we live, if you cannot understand, appreciate, and abide by our laws, where the plane landed, it takes off. Go back home.
Absolutely correct. There's no other way to look at it.
No.
If you go to another country, you're going there. If you're going to visit, and I visited a number of countries, I know that I have to obey their laws.
It's respectful.
And I don't go over there and tell them that's not the way we do it in the United States.
That's
they
right.
don't care. We're in France. We do it the way the French people do it, or the German people, and that's just. And if you move there, you have to want to be part of their society.
I'm just really fed up with this political correctness. And you know what I love watching the new American politics, especially the Republicans. I love listening to Donald Trump. Now, he may be a wild, loose cannon, but I think what Donald Trump is doing is he is saying what a lot of Americans have been thinking.
That's right. That's exactly what it is. And I think there's a lot more to the man than people are saying. He's not a buffoon. You don't build an $8 billion company if you're a buffoon. You might build a hamburger stand, but
Sure.
you won't build a $8 billion company. He's got I think he said he owned as many as 500 different companies under his umbrella.
And everybody points to the fact that, he's nothing else but a reality TV star. But they don't mention that Ronald Reagan was a movie star from Hollywood. So if everybody, thinks so highly of Ronald Reagan, who was a Hollywood actor, what's wrong with whatever, Donald Trump has done?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And I think Donald's going to do it this time. I really do. I think he's going to win the Republican nomination. I wasn't sure until a few weeks ago.
Well, I've watched the debates. Dr. Ben Carson, I don't think should be on that stage anymore, especially when he's taken, what was it, a hammer to somebody, a baseball bat to another person, hit somebody else with a lock, and then he, the guy's a bullshitter. And this part where he does everything so softly, so gently, and how
That's
Jesus
his problem.
saved him.
Yeah, it's too soft.
Yeah. Jeb Bush, 3 strikes, you're out. You had George 1, George 2, and now Jeb, sorry, you're out. Carly Fiorina.
The second thing about George or Bush is somebody needs to keep him awake.
Yeah. Carly Fiorina.
He looks like he's so bored he's going to sleep while he's talking to you.
Yeah. Carly,
My wife doesn't think he wants to be in it. She thinks he's doing it because the family wants him to.
Well, why isn't he man enough to say, hey, I don't want to do this?
Yeah.
Carly Fiorina, I don't think she should be in there in the first place. Cruz, I kind of like him sometimes. Rubio, I think that he's an up-and-coming guy, but I think he's a little bit too young and wet behind the ears yet.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And
I think next time around
yeah.
he'll be mature enough, maybe,
Yeah.
or two terms from now. Yeah. He's a young man. He's a very young man.
He is.
Very bright.
So what is your take on the Democratic side?
Oh, I don't know what to say. We got a communist or socialist, we got a liar, and we got somebody who doesn't quite know why they're there.
Yeah. I've never seen so many candidates for a nomination for the Republican side ever before. It's TV at its best at times.
A lot of them ought to hang it up. I mean, they ought to know by now that they're not going to, there's at least 4 or 5 that should just toss it in. Bobby Jindal had enough sense to do it.
Yeah.
Scott Walker did early on. He realized very quickly that this wasn't his time. He said, it's not my time. And I think Jindal said something about the same thing. It's not my time. Yeah. So there's a bunch of the others. It's not their time either, and they ought to realize it and get out.
So basically, Lee, with the people that you've talked to, and you've had the pleasure of meeting whenever you've gone out to talk about your books, what is the general consensus about the state of the United States right now?
Very worried. I think they're very, very worried. We just had Thanksgiving with my wife's cousin. Mm-hmm. Her husband was a courier in the State Department for years. I think the easiest thing to do is tell him, name which country you haven't been in, because it would be much easier than the ones he has.
Right. And
he's just disgusted. The people that have retired are disgusted with their State Department. They're disgusted with their leadership. The military realizes that the morale in the military is almost at zero. The rules of engagement are just killing people. Look at this bombing that we've been doing. We've been talking about all these wonderful sorties that we've been flying. Mm-hmm. Now it comes out that 75% of the aircraft that flew came back with their weapons and never fired a shot because they couldn't get permission to fire.
That's pathetic.
It is pathetic.
That is pathetic.
The Russians went in there and said, okay, we're going to bomb some people. Yeah, well, there's civilians there. Well, that's their problem, And in war, if we tried to fight a World War II like this, we would be speaking German and Japanese.
Yeah. Once again, we're looking at political correctness. I look at that as collateral damage, It
is, and you want to avoid it. And it's very unfortunate that hospital got attacked. It was an accident, friendly fire. But if you build a hospital in a war zone, don't expect it not to get hit.
How many MASH units suffered from bombing and shelling and were destroyed during the Korean War and the Vietnam War? Like, nobody talks about that.
No, and they were used as targets.
Yeah, exactly.
By the enemy.
What was your take on Turkey shooting down the Russian bomber?
I'm glad they did. That was very interesting. I wonder if the President Erdogan actually ordered it or whether it was just a mishap. But somebody had to clip Putin's wings because he's just going to keep pushing until this happens. That's the only way you're going to stop Putin is to bang his probes. Smash one of his probes with a hammer because he just keeps probing, and if he gets by with it, he moves in and then he probes some more. And I think Turkey put them on notice that we're not going to do it. Now, instead of Putin apologizing, saying the aircraft moved into their space by accident, he's going after Turkey and putting in sanctions, saying the Turkish people can no longer visit Russia without a visa.
But you see, I often wonder what would have happened if President Obama would have been a warrior like Putin is, instead of being a politician like he is. For example, let's go a couple of years ago when he drew those red lines in the sand in Syria, and he backed away from both of them.
Oh, that was disaster. That was total. When you do that, you have just painted a target on your back to say, kick me again.
Well, I think if my memory serves me correct, it was only after that Russia started saying, the United States isn't as strong as it used to be.
Yeah, and then you got a week later. Putin just despises Obama. He calls him a child. He says it's like dealing with a child.
You know what? I think he's right.
He is, unfortunately. Yeah, I mean, I don't like Putin. I don't like what he stands for.
Right.
But I admire the man as a leader. He is a leader. He's doing what his country's best interest. He doesn't care about anybody else. He cares about what I can do to build Russia up. And that's his job.
You see, I think why he's getting so involved in the fight against ISIS is because he doesn't want the refugees coming up to Russia.
No, he's got enough problems with Chechnya.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So he figures, well, wait a minute. If I don't want them here, we've got to get them back to their own land. And it's once again, you know, there are so many people who don't want to say what's on their mind because they feel that they'll be looked down upon by the other members of society who they have no idea are just really as ticked off as they are. But how do you live in a society like we live in today without carrying a bit of a grudge because you're overly political correct? You've got a president and we have a prime minister who isn't doing what you believe they should be doing in the best interest of the country. You know, here in Canada, I'm looking at 25,000 new people coming into Canada when we already have homeless people, hungry people, children who go to school without meals. You know, there's not enough.
You're describing our country, too.
Exactly.
Same thing. And we shouldn't take care of home before you take care of somebody else.
Exactly. Exactly. Now, you in the United States, how many illegal immigrants do they estimate are in the States? 11 million?
Yeah, probably 3 times that many.
You know?
At least they're not over here trying to change the government. They're not over here saying, now you have to obey my religion. You have to obey, it's out of control. Minneapolis area right now, some incidents that have occurred to give you the idea. A blind man came out of the airport with his dog to take a taxi, and the taxi driver wouldn't let him in the car because Muslims don't want dogs in their car.
Well, I'm going to tell you one better than that, my friend. I was at Walmart with my wife a couple of weeks ago here in Hamilton, and there was a Muslim lady wearing the burqa as a cashier, and she was wearing rubber gloves. So my wife said, "Excuse me, can you tell me why you're wearing rubber gloves?" She says, "Yes, I'm a Muslim, and in case I have to touch any meat."
Yeah, at least she'll do it. There was places in both Minnesota and in Michigan where the clerk said, "I won't check you out because you have bacon."
Unbelievable.
Yeah, I say, okay, I'm checking you out instead. You're gone out the door with your burqa and all. Don't come back.
But you know what? There are members of the Muslim community who are doing their very best to be productive members of the new nations that they have made their homes.
Yes.
You know,
that's true. And I totally acknowledge that. We had a doctor that was a Muslim, and she was a woman. She was very good.
My doctor
I had no problem with that.
My doctor is a female Muslim. I think she's great. My next door neighbor, his family, you know, we've been here in where we live now for about 11 years, and we've watched their kids grow. We've watched their kids have kids. And you know what? They don't try to be different. They don't try to influence you to do anything. You know, it's Merry Christmas to them. And, you know, they're part of society, and we try our best to try and respect their religion, respect their holidays, and it works because you're trying so hard to meet people halfway.
But you know that if ISIS took over, those people would be put to death just as well as Christians because they're not Muslim enough.
Yeah. Yeah. Mind you, when you look at history, Lee, you know this very well. This war that Islam has been raging on the rest of the world until they conquer it has been going on for centuries. This is nothing new.
It started in 634.
Yeah.
That's how long it's been going on. Since 634.
And they've been gaining and gaining and gaining.
Yes, and the thing is that we talk about, there's good Muslims, and first of all, Islam has not been hijacked by the fundamentalists, and they're not radical. There's no such thing as a radical is Muslim. The radicals, what we're calling radical, are fundamentalists that are saying we're going to do things the way the Prophet told us to do it.
Yeah.
And that's ISIS. They're doing exactly what the Prophet did.
That's right. That's right. I had a guest on the show a couple of weeks ago who came up with what I consider to be a pretty damn good idea. He said what should happen is, or it would be great if this could happen, if the senior clergy within the Islam community were to rewrite the Quran and take out all the hate.
Yeah.
And I said that's not going to happen.
That would be a reformation.
Yeah.
And Zudi Zafar is a Muslim doctor in Arizona who is leading the charge, basically, to do just that.
Yeah.
And he's under death threats from the fundamentalists in his own religion, because they're saying, and it's in the Quran, it says you cannot change the letter of one word, in Allah's Quran. So by definition, you can't change it. You can't do what you just said. And that's the problem.
Lee, you and I have to take a news break at the bottom of the hour. Please stand by, my friend. Exonation.
I will do that.
My guest is Lee Boyland. He's an author. He's a thinker. His website, www.leeboylandbooks.com. That's www.leeboylandbooks.com. And we'll be back on the other side of this break as we continue from our broadcast center here in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. By the way, also on Lee's site are a number of his published articles. You're going to spend a lot of time there when you go there. That's leeboylandbooks.com. I'll be back on the other side of this break with the news. Don't go away.
You're listening to the X Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. Radio's authority on the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology, celebrating 25 years of broadcasting around the world and to the great beyond.
Modern Esoteric, Beyond Our Senses by Brad Olson, consummates the lifeology story about where humanity originates. It is the lost continents, the primitive wisdom, the mythos of creation, and the rethinking of ancient history as we are taught in academia. There is much more to the story than what we have been told. As this is the first book in the Esoteric series, Modern Esoteric starts at the beginning of time and accelerates up to this modern age. Future Esoteric is book 2 in the series and takes a forward-looking position ahead of today with an open and honest examination of the ET issue and various unexplained phenomena. To discover the writings of author Brad Olson, visit www.bradolson.com. That's www.bradolson.com. The new nonfiction book, Razor of Madness, is similar to cult movies like Clockwork Orange, Dragon's Tattoo, or The Other Side of Hell. Wayne Morin Jr. and Thomas Lee Howe will expose widespread and systematic deficiencies in this thought-provoking tell-all novel. Mind control rages among scholars in law schools. Human rights are ignored while thought reform and mental manipulation are accepted practices used as behavior modification. Dr. Louis Jolyon West comes to mind. Media and public scrutiny shows that United States mental hospitals are in fact destructive murder industries. Razor of Madness expose novel details this epidemic through an in-depth professional and personal investigation. For decades, there has been a revolving door policy that still releases killers and pedophiles back into society. The maestro of mind control continues to haunt America to this very day. Razor of Madness is available in paperback or as a downloadable ebook at Amazon.com.
What if Jesus came back now and insisted that we listen to him? How would the world be different if Christians really followed the Gospels? For 2,000 years, we've been practicing a religion. Now it's finally time to get it right. Read Liberating Jesus, new from Roberta Grimes. Meet the Jesus you never knew. Roberta uses afterlife evidence and biblical analysis to prove that Jesus is exactly right. Learning the lessons that he came to teach is the reason we are born at all. Roberta says he has come back now to insist that we actually listen to him so we can begin to use his teachings to unite and transform the world. Liberating Jesus wherever books are sold. Jesus has the answers, and it's not too late. Roberta blogs and answers questions at robertagrimes.com.
While science pursues fact, magic accesses the quantum level, bridging random facts to form truth. As long as science and magic remain separate and polarized, the truth cannot be known. I'm Wilda Wieka. Join me on the Science of Magic radio program dedicated to unification and evolution of consciousness. During each episode, I'll be speaking with experienced and respected scientists and mystics. From astrologers to astronomers, from medical doctors to shaman, the scientific method to dowsing and intuition, we will weave together information from seemingly divergent practices to promote unity and enlightenment. Join me, Wilda Wieka, and the Science of Magic right here on the X Zone Broadcast Network. For more information, visit www.thescienceofmagic.net.
And welcome back, everyone. This is the X Zone. I am Rob McConnell. Lee Boyland is our special guest. www.leeboylandbooks.com. Lee, I was going through the different published articles that you have posted on your website, and I came across one title, and I was wondering if you could tell me what it's all about. Why is criticizing Islam not free speech?
Well, that was the question, because I think it is free speech to be able to criticize Islam, but they consider it blasphemy. And if you are guilty of blasphemy, then you should be stoned to death or hung or some other method terminate your life. And they're trying to get these laws passed. They're trying to get the United Nations signed up to a resolution to support blasphemy, that if you criticize Islam or the Prophet, you can be held in the world court. So, and they've tried to introduce laws in the United States Senate and Congress for several sessions to institute blasphemy, to make it impossible to criticize Islam. And then, of course, once you start that, then it's impossible to criticize the president. It's there's no end to it once it starts.
Right. I find it very ironic that even though the Islam criticizes many parts of our very own essence as free nations, when it comes to accepting money, they're there. And doesn't the money in the United States say, "In God we trust"?
Yes, and they want to get rid of it. There's all kinds of constant effort to get that taken off. I love the fact that they said you can't put up the 10 Commandments. I don't see anything wrong with the 10 Commandments. I don't care what religion you're in.
Yeah, neither do I.
I mean, it says, take no God before me. Okay, if you're a Muslim, you can say, okay, that means Allah. If you're Buddhist, you can think it's the Buddha. You can apply that statement to any religion, but the rest of it is just the rules of society that you learn to live together. It's the rules of having a civilization.
So what do we do? Is there any way to fix this problem in a way where everyone's a winner, or does the foot have to go down and say, listen, this is the way it is?
I think we got to do that. We had an incident in a group I belong to, and we published, another group I belong to has published a series of what we call bulletins on trying to explain various things about Islam. And the first one was, the one that got published in this newsletter was the Quran. And I wrote that one as a matter and it got published with my name on it. It wasn't supposed to be. It was supposed to be the group's name on it, but they put my name on it. Out of about 1,000 people, 2 people objected. 2 out of 1,000. So we're going to stop doing this because 2 people out of 1,000 were upset.
That doesn't make sense.
And I told them, get over it or leave.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the president was a little upset with me. I said, no. I said, you're going to let the tail wag the dog? Hell with that. If you don't like it, go somewhere else. That caused quite a flap.
Yes,
but it's the truth, You got to tell these people, you don't run, 2% doesn't rule the world. Sorry.
What I was just remembering what Donald Trump said he wanted to do. He wanted to put certain mosques under surveillance. He wanted to close certain mosques down, and he wanted to have a Muslim database. Now, do you consider that to be profiling?
I guess you could call it profiling, but I think it's needed profiling. I think it's required in order to have security profiling. Israel profiles people that get on their airplanes, and they don't have bombers on their airplanes, so it works. So they can profile me all they want.
I've got an old saying, because a lot of people say their Big Brother has too much power. There's too much surveillance going on. The government knows too much. And I've got a very simple saying: if you've got nothing to hide, you've got nothing to fear.
Until you have people starting interpreting what you should fear based on their ideology, which is what the progressive liberals do. Oh, he owns a gun. He's a horrible person. We have to get rid of him. Well, the fact that I own a gun doesn't make me a horrible person. If I use the gun in a robbery, that makes me a horrible person.
Definitely.
So there's always people that are on the outside of what I call the fringe lunatic in every group, every religion, every society, and they've all got this idea that they know what's best for everybody else, even though it doesn't work for them.
What about the Pope saying that the bombings that happened in Paris last week or 2 weeks ago was an act of war, and it was the start of World War III?
I can't figure this Pope out. One day he's praising Islam, and the next day he's calling it like it is. I think he's probably right, although it may be a little overstatement. I think the act of war started a long time ago. The current resurgence of Islam began in 1979 when we let Iran kick us out of our embassy and hold our diplomats for 444 days. That's what lit the fuse. And then Obama coming along. As soon as he got elected president, he goes to Egypt and pours gasoline on the fire.
I understand that there are several things that President Obama has accomplished or has done that is totally against what the president should be doing, and yet nobody's holding him accountable.
This is unbelievable. They talk about, you remember the Teflon Don? They used to talk about the mafia guy in New York City?
Yeah.
This is the Teflon president. I mean, seriously, it's a bulletproof Teflon vest that he wears. Nothing affects him, no matter what he does.
How come?
I can't believe we haven't filed impeachment against him at least once by now.
Why do you think that is? Why do you think he's getting away with so much?
the Republicans are afraid to do it for the backlash. I think it's a lot to do with the fact that he's the first black president, and people are afraid that if anybody does anything to the first black president, no matter what he's guilty of, it doesn't matter. It'll start race riots, because look how, and that's another fire that Obama pours gasoline on regularly. He every time there's a racial incident, he takes he goes in and makes an immediate judgment without any facts at all, and then pours gasoline on the fire and gets it going.
Yeah. There's
a lot of good black people that could be president.
Sure.
And one of my favorite sayings is, "I have no problem with a black man in the White House. My problem is we got the wrong black man in the White House."
Well, even I understand that saying, and I understand what the thought is behind it. And I've even gone so far and spoken to other members of the media in the States, and one says, "You know what, Rob? Putting President Obama in power was a social experiment that went wrong."
Has there ever been one that went right?
Not to my knowledge.
Yes,
another
that's right.
a broadcaster in the United States sent me this last week, and it says, "President Obama, this is why you didn't go to France to show your solidarity against the Muslim terrorists." And it goes on to say, "It was you who spoke these words at an Islamic dinner." Now, these are quotes all found throughout the media. "I am one of you. It was you who on ABC News referenced my Muslim faith. It was you who gave $100 million in U.S. taxpayer funds to rebuild foreign mosques. It was you who wrote that in the event of a conflict, I will stand with the Muslims. It was you who assured the Egyptian foreign minister that I am a Muslim. It was you who bowed in submission before the Saudi king. It was you who sat for 20 years in a libertarian theology church condemning Christianity and professing Marxism. It was you who exempted Muslims from penalties under the Obamacare that the rest of us have to pay. It was you who purportedly omitted, endowed by our Creator from your I can't read what that says, something of the Declaration of Independence." Oh, his recitation of the Declaration of Independence, okay? "It was you who mocked the Bible and Jesus Christ's Sermon on the Mount while repeatedly referring to the Holy Quran. It was you who traveled the Islamic world talking down the United States of America. It was you who instantly threw the support of your administration behind the building of the Ground Zero Victory Mosque overlooking the hollowed crater of the World Trade Center. It was you who refused to attend the National Prayer Breakfast, but hastened to host an Islamic prayer breakfast at the White House. It was you who ordered Georgetown University and Notre Dame to shroud all vestiges of Jesus Christ before you would agree to go there to speak. But in contrast, you never requested that the mosques you have visited to adjust their decor. It was you who appointed anti-Christian fanatics to your Tsar Corps. It was you who appointed rabid Islamists to Homeland Security. It was you who said NASA's foremost mission was an outreach to the Muslim community." What else did he say here?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, it just goes on and on and on, and everybody says, "Well, he's not a Muslim." I don't know how you can say he isn't.
You know, being a Muslim doesn't mean you can't be president of the United States. Being a Muslim doesn't mean that you can't be, a congressman or a senator, because there are congressmen, senators, and a president who are Muslims. But why does he deny it?
Why does he deny it, and why does he constantly belittle the country that he's president of? His job is to make America better than it was when he took office. That's
right.
The president's job.
Yeah.
And he's doing everything he can to make it worse.
Do you think that having a president like Donald Trump in the White House would actually solve these problems, or has it come to a point where this problem will not be solved in a political friendly way?
we are approaching, unfortunately, and that's, we go back to my book, which is the theme of it. We are approaching the fact that the far left and the central right of this country are approaching a civil war. If it continues along this line, at some point in time it will begin. And the book is a series of little stories of things that occur that build together until finally the book culminates in this huge march of hundreds of thousands of Americans, literally hundreds of thousands, coming to the Washington D.C. area to march on Washington and literally hang the crooks. And it's just occurred. I'll read you some of the characters.
Sure, please. Yeah.
The characters' names are designed to be interesting. We have race baiters in there, and they created a story. Now, this was before Ferguson, but if you read the book, you're going to say, "Oh, you copied this from the Ferguson events." No, I didn't. I wrote it before Ferguson. And we have the two race baiters. I'm sorry. Am I interrupting you?
No.
Okay. It's Tobias Dullston, which is a takeoff on, if you reverse dull to what's the opposite of dull?
Bright.
Sharp. Okay. And then we have Joseph Scoundrel as the other one. And some of the other characters, because we had a lot of fun with the names. We have the president is Barrington Barry Abamba.
Well, that's pretty close.
The vice president is John Blabberman. And we have Victoria Barrett as the secret controller in the White House, which sounds a little bit like somebody else. And we have Edison Hedler as the Attorney General, and Jerome Heinz as a takeoff on Heinz Ketchup, as Secretary of State. And then we have Jane Incompetato as the Secretary of Homeland Security. And she resigned just about the time we finished the book. Then we have Nellie Maloney in the Congress, Barbara Boxnutter. We have Carlos Crux as the senator, who resembles somebody that's running for president. We have Dana Finkelstein, and we couldn't come up with anybody for the acting president pro tem of the Senate, so my wife finally came up with Harold Real Dick. And so, everybody likes that one more than anybody else. And part of the story is told by news, guests on news programs, like I'm a guest on yours, and we have, where are they? We have Rusty Limbaugh, for example, and I can't find him. Okay, here it is. Yeah, we have Glenn Beck, Sean Hadley, and we have William O'Ripley, the host of the Ripley Quotient with the no centrifugal force zone, and we tried to be creative in the names, but the stories is events would happen. A Ferguson type event or a Baltimore type event occurred, and then the race baiters show up like they did in Stanford, which is what I use as the model, the one that happened in Stanford, Florida, and they start tearing up the town, and it's a little Alabama town, and the townspeople said, you aren't here to burn down our houses. Sorry, you burned down a few businesses, and the shotguns come out, and that puts an end to it. So then the big race baiters show up with all their followers, and it gets rather nasty. And it keeps building up, because the other common theme that we've had is, if you remember Obama's first presidential campaign, he was talking early on about forming his own federal police force of 250,000 people that would report to the president, not to the Congress. That he would appoint the officers and he would appoint the NCOs. Well, in the book, I used the blue shirts. Now, there really is a blue shirt organization, and it's a pretty good organization. But in the story, they used this cover. They used the existing blue shirts as a cover to develop their paramilitary force that would be used to suppress the population when the time came to seize the weapons. So the whole thing goes back to, we're going to seize your weapons, we're going to take them away from you, and that coupled with some of the other advents, I use the pollution control equipment, this greenhouse gas fiasco, which he's actually done now. They passed the EPA's issued regulations that will basically shut down the coal-fired power plants and the coal mines. Well, this occurred, and everybody said, it finally dawned on the population, and I think the way I worded it was, everybody was okay with greenhouse gases as long as the air conditioner worked and the lights came on, only now they don't. And all of a sudden, if you lose electricity, which is also a vulnerability from an attack, you got no water, you have no lights, you have no fuel for your car. You think about it, because electrical energy powers everything. Your phones are gone. You can't get. There might be gasoline in the tanks at the service stations, but you're going to have a hand pump to get it out. There's nobody going to bring you any more. It's really frightening when you think about what would happen if this occurred. And we're not paying attention. We're worrying about global warming. What did the president just say? ISIS is caused by global warming.
He didn't say that, did he?
Yeah, I think he did. I really did. I think he did at this global warming conference that if we could get solar panels into the area and everybody would have solar panels, they'd quit fighting.
Oh, he needs a reality wake-up call.
Kirkhammer told him, said that he's totally lost touch with reality.
You know what?
And that's a psychiatrist making that statement.
Why do you think Joe Biden didn't run for president?
Who?
Joe Biden.
That's interesting. I think there's a rumor going around that he's getting dementia. And if that's true, that would explain it. I don't see it. I really don't. I think that he looked at this and saying, if I get to be president, I got to explain and take responsibility for all this 8 years of mess. And right now I'm tap dancing around the stage and I'm sort of the invisible man that makes jokes and everybody just smiles. But I don't think he wants to be responsible.
Can't blame him, can you?
And I don't know why Hillary wants to be, because she's going to be responsible if she wins. But she seems to think she can just lie her way out of it.
I think with Hillary, there's a lot of ego problems there. I think that Bill is behind her push to become president. Because it'll be a significant gain for them.
They get to be first dude.
Yeah,
that's what he said.
Geez, I wonder if Hillary's going to have an affair with a male intern just to get back at Bill.
I don't know. That's a strange relationship. I think it's a relationship of mutual support for advancement, and I don't think there's any love there. But they support each other because they're billionaires now.
Yeah,
they're billionaires.
They
left the White House broke. You understand?
Yeah, thanks to the people of the United States of America, they are billionaires.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Lee.
Now they're having to refile some tax returns because they apparently forgot to pay taxes.
Geez, I wonder how that happened, eh? Listen, Lee, the time has come when you and I must say so long for tonight, my friend. Listen, I want to thank you so much for coming on. To you and your lovely missus and the rest of your family, a belated happy anniversary, happy Thanksgiving. And
thank you very much for having me. It's always fun, and the time goes so fast when we're on this program. It seems like 5 minutes.
Lee, let our listeners know where they can find out more about you and buy your books.
It's Lee Boyland Books, LeeBoylandBooks.com. And they're very intriguing stories. They make you think.
They sure do. Lee, take care of yourself, my friend, and I look forward to the next time you join us back here.
Thank you, and wishing you the best for the holidays coming up. And Merry Christmas. I got to be politically incorrect at least once.
Well, I am all the time here. And a very Merry Christmas to you too, my friend.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Exonation, Lee Boyland has been my guest, www.leeboylandbooks.com. Now, I'll be back on the other side of this news break at the top of the hour as we continue here in the X-Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Worldwide toll-free 800-610-7035. Email X-Zone at xzoneradiotv.com. On all social media sites, X-Zone Radio TV. and our website, www.xzoneradiotv.com. I'll be back on the other side as we continue. And my guest this next hour, Brad Olson. We'll be back. Don't go away.